Hi everybody, welcome back. This week we're going to be talking about our calligraphy and hand lettering makeaway kit. So I'm just going to show you everything that goes in this kit and then a little bit about how to use it. So in the kit you'll have this page that tells you 4 dual tip pins as well as a booklet. So these are your dual tip pins. The colors will vary. This is just a standard set. Here's your brush tip. And then here's a fine liner, which is on the other side. And so these markers come with a calligraphy book. This calligraphy book is more styled towards traditional calligraphy pins, so with a metal nib and or chisel tip. So the things I'm going to show you, there's a chisel tip, which is like this Sharpie, which makes like a straight rectangular line, is what that book will be used best for. But for these brush markers, what I'm going to show you is something called brush lettering or hand lettering. It could be called bounce lettering, just depending on who you talk to. So that's what I'm going to show you today. These are some practice sheets from a website. You can find them all over Pinterest. The website I got these from are byamandak.com. So if you would like to use the same practice sheets I'm using, that's where this set came from. But for most brush lettering, basically you're going to start out with some simple strokes. So these are a broad stroke, which is what is going to make up most of your letters. It'll be a combination of broad strokes and thin strokes. So these thin lines. So the kind of common way these are used is you use the broad stroke when you're going down, brushing down to do a letter, and then a thin one whenever you're going up. But there are always exceptions to these rules, as you'll see. So here we're going up and it's broad, or up and it's thin, and down and it's broad. So these are just some basic shapes that are going to help you whenever you start doing each of your letters of the alphabet. So as you can see, starting broad and then going to thin, starting thin and going to broad. And those are kind of the things you're most going to want to practice whenever you're learning to hand brush. And there's byamandak.com down at the bottom, just more easier for you to see. But so those are the kinds of basic things you're going to use to make up every letter. So like a broad stroke connecting to a thin stroke, connecting to a broad stroke. So I'm going to start off and I'm going to show you each letter. So this is the A, so broad, thin, and that's just what I'll be practicing here. And so you'll just continue to work these. And so if you don't have your own worksheets to work with, if you don't have a way to do it, you can copy the strokes that I'm using and you can kind of see them. Thin to broad, thin to broad, thin. So you can just copy these kind of same things. And the biggest thing I'll say about brush lettering or hand lettering or bounce lettering is that it just takes a lot of practice. No one's going to be good at it the first time. As you can see here, I'm filling in some of my lines. But it just takes practice, just like learning any kind of alphabet. Just like when you learned it as a child, it takes a lot of practice. So you can see I'm going back here and I make some mistakes, but I go back and I try and correct them to try and build that muscle memory of, like, you know, you're going to have the little top of the C that goes broad to the thin. So thin, broad, thin, kind of same thing here. And the biggest thing too with brush and hand lettering is that you don't have to make it look like the example necessarily. As long as as long as you like the way it looks, that's what it really matters. And if it looks like a D to you, then, just go with it. And so it's a very fluid type of thing. It's not as formulaic as maybe a lot of the traditional calligraphy you see done with the nib and calligraphy pen or with a chisel type pen. So we'll continue each of these. and just planning out ahead of time what you want to write is also a thing that can make it easier. If you've ever had any lessons in cursive letters, obviously this whole alphabet is going to be in cursive, but I found, at least for me, because I write in cursive regularly, this was easier for me to do. And this is just a more stylistic version of cursive, in that you're just making sure all your letters connect by the thin and the thin leader and the thin ender, so like the start of the letter and the end of the letter. So we'll just keep going through these. I'm not going to talk a lot because it's pretty self-explanatory. So I will just come back when we get towards the end and just give you a few more tips of what I learned as I went along with this. Okay, here we are at the P's. I found these very tricky, so if you can find a way that you like it that doesn't include maybe so many flourishes and curls on it, that's perfectly fine. This is going to be your own unique hand lettering style, so just remember that as you're doing these. If something's not quite working out, don't feel bad if you make an exception and you add your own flair, because you want this to be, your handwriting and not a perfect copy of somebody else's handwriting in the style that they did it in. So just remember that too. I don't quite like the way they did those cues, so whenever I do it my own style, I would change it up a little bit, so just also think about that. Here are the S's. You may have learned to do S a different way in school, so just remember that too, that you don't have to do it exactly the way that they have done it. I was having kind of a hard time getting the S down, so I was looking at some different S's, but then I just decided to stick with what was on the paper. And here's the T, so just a basic kind of T. You don't have to do anything too fancy here. And feel free to change the bar, which is the line that goes across the T, to make it more or less curvy. If you like a curve, if you like it straight across, you know, there's no wrong or right way to do it. You want to work on these W's, getting that line thickness and variation. Sorry about the U. My camera stopped filming, but the U is just kind of like the top of the Y. So just a nice thick line and then a thin line and then a thin line going off. All right, so there are some practice lettering at the top, and so I'm going to take everything I've learned and kind of put it together to show you what a couple of names look like. So here I've written out the name Amy. Next I do the name Nathan, just kind of showing you what putting each of these letters together kind of looks like before I write them on a final name tag. So this is where you can just get some lettering paper that has this dash line across to show you the center line, and you can practice writing your names out on that before you write them on the final name tag. Okay, so now we're moving on to the name tag. This is kind of where, you take everything that you've learned and all the practice and you do it for real. So on this one, I'm just going to write Amy again. And it looks very hand done, which is what you want. You want it to look handmade. So I go back in and I touch up a couple of places on here. Which is fine and perfectly normal. That's what professionals do too. They go back in and smooth out lines. So this is Amy. On this next one, I do the name Sarah. As I said before, I looked at some different S's and then I tried to do them, but it didn't really work out. So I just made it into a lowercase s for Sarah. And, you just go with the flow. This one is definitely not my favorite. I wish I'd made this R taller to match the A's. And then my A comes very close to the hole for the tag. But you just go on through it. And then I did Nate for the name on this tag. And it's fine. My A is a little bit spaced apart and the A is a little bit thick in a couple places, but it's legible. You can read the name Nate, so whoever gets this handmade name tag, I'm sure would just be appreciative that you took the time to write out their name. So I go back and thicken up a couple of my lines, make them connect a little bit easier and more legibly. make the A a little bit thicker, make the descender on the N a little thicker. So overall, this is a fun kit for you to just check out, practice. You have plenty of time before Christmas comes or Thanksgiving to make cute little name tags, dinner plate tags, setting cards, etc. So thank you so much for joining me on our journey through this quick brush lettering tutorial. And always remember, you can use the thinner part to correct any of your lines. I look forward to meeting with you for our next video. Thanks. Bye.